Hey folks, Alex here, and welcome back for another freight market update. If you're running in the Southeast this week, stick around because we're going to cut through the noise and get you the straight story on what's actually paying out there. This is your Southeast Spot Market 7-day pulse for the week of October 9th through 16th, 2025. And our tagline this week, no cheap freight, no crying. Because here's the deal. Rates ticked up a hair, but that doesn't mean every load board is suddenly Christmas morning. You've still got to be smart, disciplined, and willing to say no to garbage freight. So let's get into what's really happening on the ground. All right, the quick hit version for those of you who need to make a decision in the next 5 minutes. Rates, tiny uptick this week. We're talking pennies, not dollars. Dry vans basically flat. Reefers up about 2 cents, flatbeds up a penny. Year over year, we're still sitting about 6 to 10 cents higher than last October. So we're climbing out of the hole, just not fast. Volume, easing off after that end of quarter push. Load posts dropped about 11% week over week for vans. The September freight surge, that was shippers trying to hit their numbers. Now we're back to reality. Capacity, mostly loose out there, folks. Load to truck ratios dropped. Vans are sitting around 6.3 loads per truck. That's not tight. But, and this is important, we've got pockets where it is tight. Border markets, certain flatbed lanes, some reefer corridors. Pockets. Rejections? Still historically low. About 5 to 6% of contract loads getting turned down. That tells you carriers are still hungry and taking what they can get. Bottom line, market stable but soft. Not falling off a cliff, but not heating up either. Let me paint the picture for the Southeast this week. Your Gulf and Atlantic ports, Houston, Mobile, Savannah, Jacksonville, they're holding steady. Import freight's flowing. Retailers are stocking up for the holidays, and that's keeping those port markets from falling apart completely. Now, Florida. Florida outbound is still soft as butter. Always is this time of year. The citrus crop, forget about it. Worst in a century. So those produce loads that used to keep reefers busy, they're just not there. Inbound Florida normalized after the hurricane relief push. For a few weeks there, getting loads into Florida was actually paying decent because of storm recovery. That's fading now. But here's what you need to know. Post-storm rebuild is creating little bursts of demand. Not consistent, but when it hits, it hits. Building materials, generators, roofing supplies. If you're positioned right, you can catch those spikes. Your money corridors this week, I-10, I-75, I-95. Those are your headhaul lanes. Master those, and you'll do all right. Dry van rates week over week, essentially flat. We had that 7-cent jump the week before, and now it's nothing. Sitting at about $1.70 a mile line haul, $2.07 all in with fuel. Load to truck ratio eased off after that end of quarter rush. Remember, September always has that little bump when shippers scramble to hit their quarterly targets. October, we're back to normal, which means it's a buyer's market again. So where's the play? Chase the headhaul lanes. Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina. Those are your targets. Freight's moving out of those states. Atlanta's always got freight. Birmingham, Charlotte, position yourself there. Florida outbound, that's your backhaul strategy territory. I had a guy call me last week. I'm sitting in Miami with an empty 53-footer. What do? I said, brother, you pray for a miracle, or you take a cheap load to get the hell out of there. Florida outbound pays what it pays, and it ain't much. Don't plan your week around it. Here's a pro move. Stack multi-drop loads to lift your revenue per mile. Single pickup to 3 different stops in the Carolinas. That can turn a $1.60 load into something that actually makes sense when you do the math. Time consuming? Yeah, but it beats deadheading. Reefer's the tightest mode versus vans in certain Southeast pockets right now. Not everywhere, but pockets. That inbound Florida storm relief freight, fading fast. Couple weeks there, ice, food, perishables into the storm zones, that was paying. Emergency rates, tight capacity. Now, it's cooling off, pun intended, but your steady money lanes, poultry and dairy out of Georgia and Alabama, those are holding. Chicken plants in North Georgia, processing facilities in Alabama. That freight moves every single week and it pays consistent. Not spectacular, but consistent. Here's my rule for reefer right now. Bid long hauls only if you're getting paid. I'm talking $220, $230 a mile minimum. Don't take a 1,200-mile reefer run at $1.80 just because the dispatcher says it's all we got. That's how you go broke with a full fuel tank. And watch those weekend capacity gaps. Reefer freight doesn't stop on weekends. Produce doesn't care what day it is, but a lot of drivers do. If you're willing to run Saturday, Sunday, you can sometimes catch better rates because capacity tightens up. Just saying, flatbed is the tightest mode overall right now. Load to truck ratio sitting around 27-1. That's solid. Southeast construction and rebuild activity is keeping flatbeds busy. Hurricane recovery, infrastructure projects, building materials, moving into job sites. I was talking to a flatbed guy in Birmingham last week. He said he's been running 5 days straight with barely any dwell time. Steel, rebar, machinery. That's the sweet spot. Here's where flatbeds are winning. Short haul day runs are paying well. You don't need to run coast to coast to make money right now. A 200-mile haul of steel beams or lumber in Alabama can pay $2.50, $2.70 a mile. You can do 2 of those in a day and go home. That's good money. Target steel and machinery in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. Those states are hot. Manufacturing, construction, energy projects, it's all happening there. But here's the critical thing with flatbed. Time kills your RPM. If you're sitting at a job site for 3 hours waiting for them to unload, that's eating into your day rate. Minimize dwell time. Quote detention from minute 1 and enforce it. I'm here, clock's running. Don't be shy about that. Let's talk about Florida, because I know some of you are looking at that load board thinking maybe it's not that bad. It is. Florida outbound rates are a discipline zone. You need to treat every load out of Florida like it's trying to ruin your week, because it probably is. I've watched good owner-operators take cheap Florida freight just to get moving, and then they end up in Georgia with no money and a half-empty fuel tank. Here's the play. Stage yourself in Jacksonville or Tallahassee for cleaner exits. Don't go all the way down to Miami or Fort Myers unless you've got a pre-booked loadout or you know you can get freight. Jax and TLH give you options. You can jump on I-10, I-75, I-95 pretty easily. Build stacks. Florida to Georgia to the Carolinas. Multi-stop loads that get you north gradually while picking up revenue. It's not sexy, but it works. And listen to me carefully. Quote your accessorials up front. Detention, layover, tonneau. This load pays X dollars plus $75 per hour detention after 2 hours plus $400 for tonneau. Say it on day 1. Enforce it on day 2. Don't chase sunk miles hoping the next load will be better. It won't be. Now, what's happening in Texas is rippling east, and you need to understand this. Border capacity is crunched right now. Laredo, McAllen, El Paso. Immigration enforcement, driver shortages, regulatory stuff. The result? Fewer trucks coming up from the border, which means those trucks that would have repositioned east are doing it. So you're seeing sporadic spot spikes out of Texas heading toward the southeast. Houston to Atlanta. Houston to Jacksonville, those lanes can jump 10-15 cents overnight when capacity gets tight. My advice, be lane agnostic and follow the margin. Don't marry yourself to one route or one customer. If Texas to Southeast is paying this week, great. If it's not next week, move on. And keep an eye on import weeks. When containers start stacking up at Houston Port, freight surges. That's when you want to be positioned there. All right, this is important. The English language proficiency out of service enforcement, it's back. Since June 25th, inspectors are putting drivers OOS if they can't communicate well enough in English. The hotspots? Texas and Arizona. If you're running I-10 west of San Antonio, you are in the highest risk zone for this. Texas alone issued over 7,000 English proficiency violations in July and August. That's not a typo. 7,000. Southeast enforcement? It's mixed. Some states are cracking down, some aren't. But here's what you do. Have your docs ready. CDL, logs, dispatch sheet. And train your drivers on 3 common questions inspectors ask. Where are you coming from and where are you going? What are you hauling? Can you show me your hours of service? If your driver can answer those clearly, you're probably fine. If they freeze up or can't explain basic stuff, that's a problem. Work with them on a pre-trip script they can memorize. Seriously, it's that simple. Don't let this sneak up on you. All right, let's wrap this up with what you're actually going to do with this information. 1. Set rate floors from your cost per mile. Not what the load board says, not what the broker can do. Your number. If you need $1.85 all in to cover your costs and make a profit, then $1.60 loads don't exist for you. Period. 2. Stack Thursday, Friday short hauls in metros. Atlanta, Charlotte, Birmingham. Grab those 150 to 200 mile runs and knock out 2 or 3 before the weekend. Quick turns, steady cash. 3. Say no to anchor price loads. You know what I'm talking about. That broker who calls every week with the same garbage rate. Best I can do is $1.50. Cool. Best I can do is hang up. 4. Quote accessorials on day 1. Enforce on day 2. Detention, layover, tonneau. Get it in writing, and when it happens, you bill it. No apologies. 5. Hunt rebuild materials and time-sensitive freight. Storm recovery is still creating demand. Hurricane zones need stuff now, and they'll pay for urgency. Position yourself where that freight is. And remember our tagline, if it doesn't move the needle, it doesn't move our trucks. You're a business owner, not a steering wheel holder. Act like it. That's it for this week. Stay profitable, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.